Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call the October 18th Columbia County Planning and Zoning Commission to order. If you'd please stand with us, Commissioner Parton will lead us in our invocation. Commissioner Noel will lead us in the pledge.
If you'll bow your heads. Bless us this evening as we come together to discuss important issues facing Columbia County. Let us make informed, good decisions for our county. We're thankful for the weather, the beautiful weather, and we pray for those who affected by Hurricane Michael and for swift recovery in both South Georgia and Florida. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Republic for nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. We do have 4 or 5 commissioners present tonight. Commissioner Henderson had to be, Gary sitting over there. Commissioner Henderson is out of town on business. Ladies and gentlemen, you've had an opportunity to read the minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any amendments or additions?
Mr. Chair, I found a minor problem in our staff.
Okay. Any others? Okay. If not, I need a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion to approve carries 3-0, 3 with 1 abstention, since Commissioner Parton is not here. We do have a couple of additional items to add to our agenda tonight. Mr. Vice Chair?
Chair, we have file R7181006, minor revision. I'd like to add under H2F2. We have a minor waiver application for 527 Brigadier Landing. I'd like to add that under J, staff comments.
Okay.
With those additions, move to approve the agenda.
Okay. If there are no other additions, I'd like a second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of the amended agenda? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being right on top of things. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to clarify that the Planning Commission is a recommending body to the Columbia County Board of Commissioners. The decisions made on rezoning and variance requests tonight will be forwarded to the Commissioners for final action on November 6, 2018 at 6 p.m. in these chambers. If you wish to address the Board of Commissioners at their meeting, please see Ms. Jennifer Neal over in the corner. Over here. Where is she? Over here. Okay. To obtain a request to speak form. We're a little less formal in these chambers, as some of you may know from previous experience. If you have an issue when we get to our public hearings that you'd like to speak for or against, raise your hand. We'll ask you to come up to the dais and speak to us for 3 to 5 minutes with any additional information that you'd like to have or to voice an opinion that you would like us to hear. With that being said, we'll move into tonight's agenda with a conceptual plan, file H2C1, conceptual plan for Zura Development. Ms. Bolte, I believe that's yours.
Yes, sir. This is a concept plan for development at 5030 Columbia Road. The property is currently zoned R1, single-family residential. This property may be familiar to some of you. It was requested for an R2 zoning earlier this year that was withdrawn. So they are now looking to develop it under the existing R1 zoning. It is located on the south side of Columbia Road, opposite Tudor Branch, and as you can see, the portion of the property they're looking at is largely wooded, does have an existing pond on it. See existing conditions of the site. There is an existing cemetery towards the front of the property. Be right here in that square. The sewer line runs in the creek, and water is available to the property as well. The concept plan currently shows 26 lots on the 32 acres. The minimum lot size will be 30,000 square feet here. That is the minimum for R1 when water and sewer are provided to the lots. They will...
It's 40,000 if they're not.
40,000 if there's no sewer. They obviously will be leaving the cemetery intact at the road frontage. They are showing the minimum 50-foot buffer from Columbia Road, and they're also showing 50-foot buffers against the R1 subdivision to the rear. That does exceed the code requirement. That is something they're doing to be good neighbors. The proposed layout is very straightforward, a single road with lots on both sides. The location of their entrance is likely going to change based on feedback we've had from Georgia DOT. That doesn't necessarily impact the concept plan approval, as their overall concept of the development of accessing from Columbia Road, the single road with lots on it, is going to stay the same. But when it comes back before you for preliminary plat approval, we will probably see that entrance is shifted and there may be a few less lots. They are leaving stub outs to connect to future developable parcels. So you have the future road connection here into the remainder of the parcel and there into the adjacent property. Staff is recommending approval of the concept plan.
Commissioners, any questions of staff? Okay, this is not a public hearing, so okay, go ahead. Dr. Noah?
Where are, I see the cemetery. Put a fence around that?
I do not know the answer to that.
Probably be in the concept plan when they propose it.
Where's the existing pond?
It's
here.
right there on that map on the overhead. It is right here.
Okay, that's the place where I didn't see it. So you said there, traffic engineering about something about.
Correct. So the comment from traffic engineering specifically requests or suggests, encourages that the developer have a first round of review from GDOT prior to submitting construction plans to the county. That's hopefully to save them some time and money if GDOT does force them to redesign the entrance, potentially lose lots. If they can get that initial review from GDOT first, they can design it to meet their requirements the first time around rather than having to go back and re-engineer it.
I know that in the past, going back to the cemetery, had to, but since this is concept plan, base.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Chair, make a motion to approve the concept plan for zero development.
Do your second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. Ms. Bolte, still you, conceptual plan for Whispering Pines 4, 5, and 6.
Yes, sir. This is a concept plan for the next 3 phases of Whispering Pines. This is part of the Riverwood West planned unit development that was originally approved in 2005. It had a major revision in 2016. That's now the governing file. The property is located off William Few. You can see William Few just at the bottom there. It includes most of that property you see in red. Part of that is Section 3, which we'll see here in a minute. So this is Section 3 over here. This already has construction plans, so we're looking at the remainder of the parcel for Sections 4, 5, and 6. It's about 163 acres. It does have some existing wetlands and state waters and floodplain on the property. Most of these are kind of along the property boundary, so largely not impacting the development. This is the one exception here in the upper left. The concept plan, shows 380 lots. The lots meet the lot and structure requirements outlined in the Riverwood West PUD. The minimum lot size required is 5,000 square feet. Currently, the density is proposed at 2.3 units per acre, which is under the 2.5 allowed for this section of Riverwood West. There are 5 different lot widths shown in the different colors, as you can see on the plan. These range from lots 55 feet wide to 80 feet wide. All of the lots have minimum front setbacks of 25 feet from the right-of-way, 7.5 feet from the side property lines, and 10 feet from the rear. Again, this meets their PUD requirements. Overall, the layout is very well connected. We don't see any cul-de-sacs or any dead-end roads here. Everything is connected. It does provide connections back to the previous phases. We see an additional connection into Section 3. And the connection here, this is the amenity location for the neighborhood, so that provides them a direct access to that amenity area. We also have separate pedestrian and open space plans with this submittal. This is the pedestrian plan, again, sidewalks on both sides of all the roads, as well as some off-road walking trails. There is a walking trail on the main spine road coming in, and that ties directly into that amenity area. And staff is recommending approval of the concept plan.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions, of staff?
Yeah, in two places it says the county will work out a cost share. How's that determined?
That is coordinated between the developer and the county as far as who pays, kind of, sharing the cost of improvements on William Few at the entrance for Whispering Pines.
It's a negotiated process, just like between two business entities. Same thing. It doesn't really, not really anything different beyond that. I mean, are you asking like how it's figured? I mean, like what are you looking for?
What criteria?
So they're gonna.
Near 50.
I don't know about what criteria they use on that part. I mean, when they go and look at who's gonna pay for what, that's negotiated out. They're also gonna look at, okay, here's how much it's gonna cost. That's how that's decided. I've seen one of the quotes was, I think, a 60-40 with the developer was on the 40 side. So that's one thing I've seen from. I see you raising your eyebrows there.
Yeah.
But again, it hasn't been negotiated yet.
I think Keith may have an answer for you.
Clarification.
Mr. Lawrence, would you like to come forward?
Keith Lawrence, 211 Dixon Court, Evans, Georgia, 30809. All right, I will say this, the concept plan can't have additional conditions placed on it. We voluntarily agreed to participate in this to the tune of about $100,000 towards the traffic light. Because it was already zoned, any conditions are supposed to be placed on at the zoning stage. We did agree that this would be in the benefit of the neighborhood as well as constituents of Columbia County, so we agreed. We did the same thing. We had the same concern you had, which was, it was very, it was not. I wasn't comfortable with basically agreeing to an open-ended check on that side, so we talked about it, and it felt like we could do $100,000, which basically will do our contributions towards the right-of-way of about $380,000. Compared to when we originally proposed, when we did the zoning, was about $280,000. So we feel like we've been good stewards of Columbia County on this related to, compared to a lot of other developments that have not agreed to do these types of contributions up front. Actually, technically, it's a voluntary contribution because conditions can't be placed on a concept plan. But we feel like it's in the best benefit of everybody.
The reason I asked it, affect you.
I agree.
I know it's a concept plan.
Yep. Yeah, we really wanted to concept plan it all right now because so that the residents of Whispering Pines would know what was coming, so there's less question, because it always is an issue when people don't understand what's coming up in the future. That way they can see exactly where the homes are. Welcome.
Questions? Okay. This is not a public hearing. I'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Here, I make a motion to approve the conceptual plan for Whispering Pines 4, 5, and 6, tax map 059, parcel 138H.
Do I hear a second? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. Ms. Bolte, Purbeck Lane subdivision, your plat.
Yes, sir. This is a preliminary plat at 431 Purbeck Lane. It's 12.3 acres, currently zoned R3, single-family residential. And this is an aerial of the property. It's located at the dead end of Purbeck Lane, currently undeveloped, largely wooded. The plan is to extend the dead end there of Purbeck Lane into a cul-de-sac and develop 6 lots around the cul-de-sac. And then the 7th lot is the large acreage lot at the back. That is accessed via a driveway and easement off of the cul-de-sac, crossing the large wetlands area there to access that rear lot. The maximum or the minimum lot size for the lots around the cul-de-sac is 12,466 square feet, with an average of 17,960 square feet. Setbacks meet those required for R3, 50 feet from the center line of the road and 10 feet on the side and rear. The exception is Lot 4 right here. There is a pending minor waiver request for that lot to reduce the setback to 45 feet from the center line. That request is pending them getting this built and getting final plat so that that lot has a unique parcel ID. At this point, it's still part of the parent parcel. And staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat.
Commissioners, any questions of staff? Need a motion to approve, deny, or to table?
I make a motion to, the Herbeck subdivision, tax map 079.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Approved carries 4-0. All right, we've got a plan revision, file RZ 181005. Ms. Bolte, we're still with you.
Yes, sir. This is a minor revision to the planned unit development zoning for a portion of Jones Creek, specifically 777 Jones Creek, which is the existing clubhouse. This is a minor revision to change the operating party at the facility. Clubhouse is located at the end of Jones Creek off Evans to Locks, back in the middle of the neighborhood. It is currently part of the PUD, and this is the aerial of that area. The Jones Creek narrative, when the property was rezoned in '84, specified that the golf club would provide for sales of merchandise, food and beverage services, and that the services would be provided by Jones Creek Golf Club only, and that would be the only commercial uses permitted. The golf club has since closed. They're not operating anymore. So the request tonight is to allow kind of a split-off business that's called Caterworks to continue operating the clubhouse for the same purpose. They're not changing any of the uses. They're providing catering. They're providing event space, meeting space, basically honoring the commitments that the golf club had made to allow people to have receptions, Christmas parties, that kind of thing. So the only change is who the operator is. So this is a minor revision, and staff sees little issue with the request and is recommending approval.
Commissioners, have any questions of staff?
Bolte, I read in the paper that they suspended operations. They didn't close the club.
Okay.
I don't know if
I don't know.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Money, come on up. This is not a public hearing, but we'll let you come up and if you give us your name and home address, please, sir.
Ray Mundy, 650 Deerwood Way, Georgia 30809. As you guys know, the golf club suspended operations about a month ago. And unfortunately, given the scenario, there were a number of weddings, that type thing, that were already booked there. And out of caution and wanting to make sure that people's special days were not affected, we wanted to honor those through the end. That's mainly.
So y'all are going to operate through the December 31st and
That's correct. And
New
the
Year's Eve,
themes,
and that's it?
That's right. It's just to allow those events that are already booked there and make sure we handled it properly.
Okay, so this minor revision just until
Well, I'm not sure what the shareholders of Jones Creek investors are going to do at this point. But the intent right now is just to honor the ones that are on the books.
you're not booking new events.
Not at this point. Like I said, that could change, but that's the intent.
And currently, there is not a time limit on the revision, so it would be open for a different business entity to come in and operate the same uses on the property.
Caterworks, your and Justin's company?
Yes. That's, there will be other outside, with time, depending on what the use of the clubhouse ends up being. I guess at some other point, we may have to come back and address it, but other caterers may be down the road. But like I said, just to deal with it. We're on the books to deal with.
transferable, so you
I would not see this. As I said when I met with Ms. Bolte, that this was more out of an abundance of caution and making sure our insurances and things were all handled properly. Case.
If,
Stated there's no time limit on this?
let's say everything works out and you all arrive at some conclusion with a future operator of the golf course. Does this rezoning carry forward that would give them access, or does this go away when ownership transfers
No, this would
and a
stay
new
with the.
operator comes in? So with this being in place, would that affect any deal that you all, or you'd have to negotiate that out?
I'd probably have to negotiate that out, Commissioner Cox, because not really realizing exactly what this said when I applied. The golf course, their previous owners had leased out the restaurant to other caterers, so I did not realize that there was an issue because it had kind of been going on for 30 years. Other caterers, for a multi-year period, were in there during the 80s and the 90s. It's a lot of unknowns at this point, but
Right.
time of year, swimming pool, tennis courts are still open. Park,
oh, absolutely. Nothing that's happened at this point. As you know, the HOA owns the swimming pool and the tennis courts, and
but you all own the parking lot.
we do, but there are protections moving forward, kind of no matter what we're, like I said, this probably isn't the right time to talk about it, but whatever would happen long-term, the access to those, I believe there's easements in place or ways that has to be handled.
Have to look at that. Find,
Yeah, I mean, within the deed itself, there's a statement about there being an easement for the swimming pool and all that kind of thing. We don't know how ownership has changed or anything with that, but it exists at least.
what was the date document you
I want to say 1989?
were looking at? 89?
No,
Yes, sir.
1989. So,
And I guess the use of 17 and 18 is for wedding photographs?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
this time of year is not the prettiest anyway.
Right.
I was just surprised that it covered not just the parking lot and the clubhouse, golf course itself.
Well, I'm sorry, when you say
Does it go into,
The rezoning request.
oh, well,
go into the 17 and 18?
I think the way the parcels, because it's not one contiguous parcel that is owned by the shareholder group at this point, and the one where the clubhouse sits actually includes the land that 18 and 17. So that's one big parcel, and it's described in the deed. There's probably 6 or 8 large pieces.
I was just surprised, so it's not all one.
No, it's the deed's about.
Read it. I mean, I tried to read it.
Yeah, and the last really, although it was updated and surveyed every time there was an acquisition, the one that was recorded is in 1989. On the books now.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Mundy? All right, thank you, sir. This is not a public hearing, so at this point in time, I'll ask for a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Heard from,
I'd rather not have a public hearing on this, to be honest. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission and Planning.
Would you give us your name and home address,
My name is
please?
Judy Brown, 4166 Tyndall Drive, Georgia. I live right behind the clubhouse, basically right behind the clubhouse. I'd like to make some comments.
Ma'am, if I could ask you to hold just a minute. Sir, could I ask you to remove your hat in the back? And sir, coming in, please remove your hat. Yes, sir. Gentleman with the sunglasses on his head. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Would you like to live in a neighborhood of single-family homes where your next-door neighbor has a commercial business that was open 24/7? Would you like smelling barbecue from an outdoor smoker 24/7? Would you like hearing cars, trucks, all hours going in or out of the business? Caterworks operates out of the Jones Creek Clubhouse and has done so for several years. It was believed that this was owned and operated by the Jones Creek Golf Club for the benefit of the golf course. And I'd like to make note of the following comments. A structure was used for barbecuing that was built without a permit and has subsequently failed to provide the requested documentation to the county. The trash dumpster often doesn't get emptied. A structure used for food storage, food service items, and often garden equipment and chemicals is left open overnight. There's also concern whether food items and related utensils should be stored in a shed that also contains aerosols, gas tanks, and landscaping materials. Bottled water was left outside the structure in the heat, July to August 2017, for as many as 6 weeks and most likely served unknowingly to customers. Would you like to see a barbecue trailer parked behind your home? I live on 18, and part of that plot that they've shown you includes the parcel right behind my home. There's nothing that would prevent Caterworks or anyone else deemed permitted to park a trailer right behind my house. Would you like it if the cul-de-sac one door over from your house became a parking lot for the neighborhood pool because the parking lot that has been used for the pool got rezoned and couldn't be used to access the neighborhood pool? That question hasn't been answered. I don't know what the easement says, or if there's a written easement. Guessing, I don't think counts. I don't think it's appropriate or safe for pool goers to walk from the cul-de-sac along a drainage ditch to get to the neighborhood pool. At this time, I ask this committee to deny both the business license of Caterworks to operate out of the Jones Creek Clubhouse as well as the property rezoning request. I don't believe it was ever the intent for the Jones Creek Golf Club property to be anything other than a golf course, pro shop, restaurant, and neighborhood community center. It is also my belief that the leadership of the Jones Creek Golf Club / Caterworks has shown a disregard for the neighborhood as well as the county building standards. And one other example I want to show you of their failure to comply is there is a trailer parked by the golf range that is not permitted and has been there since spring. No response. They just do it. So as a neighbor, how can we trust that what we think they're going to do is what they're going to do? Document doesn't have an end date. It could go on forever. Any questions?
Any questions, Commissioners? Sir, if I could ask you to remove your hat, please, while you're inside. Thank you. Mr. Noah, questions or comments? Okay. This is not a public hearing, so we'll not have any other testimony. So at this point in time, I need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Chair, I'd like to.
For what period of time? For the next meeting, which is
November 1st.
November.
Without prejudice.
Well, that's withdrawing. That's not tabling.
Oh,
Okay. So you'd like to make a motion to table until November 1st? So that staff can communicate with Mr. Mundy and I guess the homeowners association to arrive at whatever conclusion or an accommodation that they're willing to arrive at.
Or at least a,
I think that's up to staff.
okay.
You can have some input on that most likely if you'd like to join in.
Parking.
So restate your motion from the beginning.
Mr. Chair. Table
First.
November 1st.
November 1st. Half time. Homeowners Association, work out the details. parking access.
Possible.
Nate, is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Okay, I've never seen anything, in 11 years, I've never seen anything quite like this. In a rezoning, can we put an end date?
So on a revision, you're basically taking the narrative and modifying it slightly, minor revision. So you could put an end date that says that this use will expire at this point.
So is that something that you would need a tabling for to do, or would that be something you,
I mean, you could
in the
you could do it
condition,
tonight if
because
you
it
wanted
still
to.
has to go before commissioners?
No, it doesn't. It
No,
ends,
just-
it ends
it
here.
ends
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So do we table or do we condition? Maintain your motion? All right. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor to table till November 1st so that staff can work out details with the applicant and homeowners association. All in favor? All opposed? Motion fails 2-2. Do I hear a substitute motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve vision, but I would like a time limit, January 2nd, 2019,
Time limit.
expiration date of the waiver.
Okay, one other thing that I'd like the gentleman to consider in a motion is hours of operation. Willing to add that to your motion?
I would maintain, what were the hours of operation previously?
What
And
is,
What?
if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
what is currently in the narrative for the revision is office hours 9 to 5 during the week as needed, and events operating up until midnight.
Okay, just on weekends,
That's
Holidays.
as booked.
as booked.
I'll
Your motion?
hours, same, add that to the motion.
So we've got a substitute motion. Do I hear a second? I'll second for discussion.
I was concerned
Separately from this, I'd like to talk to Dana at Code Enforcement and see if there's any issues that she needs to address over there with things not being permitted correctly. I'd like to take the homeowner's consideration while at the same time giving Mr. Mundy the ability to honor the obligations that he's committed to through the end of the year. With that being said and discussed, all in favor? Motion, all opposed? Okay. Motion's approved, 3-1. All right, we've got an addition here, H2F2, minor S1 revision. Ms. Bolte, is that yours?
Yes, sir. You get tired of hearing from me tonight. This is also a minor revision. This is to an S1 special zoning at 949 Appling Harlem Road. This property is located on the east side of Appling Harlem at its intersection with Old Union Road. And as you can see, is quite near the Harlem city limits, kind of wrap all the way around the property. The property was rezoned S1 special in 2014. It did have quite a long list of conditions on this property. And the use was specifically limited to a charter bus service and bus storage and maintenance associated with that use. The minor revision before you tonight is for a temporary sales office use. The applicant, Temsa North America, sells custom motor coaches and is proposing to use office space within the existing building for a sales office. They are looking for a permanent location for themselves, and they've signed a short-term lease on this property. So in this case, there is an expiration. One of the proposed conditions is that this temporary office would be allowed for only 12 months. If they need to be there longer than that, they need to be looking at a major revision with the advertising requirements as well. These are photos of the existing site. There is already space for storage of motor coaches and maintenance on the property. There would be a few other motor coaches there related to the sales office. They do import these vehicles, and they would bring them here for the final fitting out, windshield wipers, things like that, before delivering them to their customers. According to their narrative, they would have no more than 6 on the site at any time, and there's appears to be sufficient parking for that in the existing parking area. The only proposed modification to the site, they have some interior work on the building to create the new office space, and they will have a small sign by the door there for Temsa for the sales office. And with the facility already being in use for the charter bus service, very similar with associated storage, the proposed use is very similar in nature, and with it being temporary, again, not to last longer than 12 months, staff is comfortable approving it with conditions as a minor revision.
So in essence, this will be more of a courtesy delivery operation, like a new car dealership, opposed to a real
Right, so
from
it's
the
not
ground
so much
sales
like
operation.
having display and multiple vehicles on site for people to come walk through. It's more of a import and delivery type operation.
The 6 or vehicles at a time, that's 6 additional. Those are 6 that they
Right.
would have there that they'd be working on.
Yes, that's 6 additional to what Horizon already has for their business.
All right, this is not a public hearing, so if there are no questions, I'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Here, I'd like to make a motion.
Do your second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? To approve carries 4-0. All right, we'll get into our public hearing portion of the evening. Ms. Bolte, still with you, file RZ 181003.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a rezoning from R1 Single Family Residential and M1 Light Industrial at 4834 and 4836 Old Bel Air Lane. The request is to rezone the property to PRD, Planned Residential Development. This property is located just north of I-20 off South Old Bel Air Road. It is accessed by Old Bel Air Lane, which is the little narrow road you can see there. It is currently split zoned. The southern half of the property is zoned M1, which is light industrial. This was part of a county-initiated zoning in 1973 that covers all the property within about 800 feet of I-20 countywide. All of that was rezoned to M1. The remainder, the northern part of the property is zoned R1, single-family residential. This is our lower density single-family residential. The minimum lot size for that is 40,000 square feet, or about an acre. And you can see property to the north and kind of to the west, outside of that M1 area, remains in that R1 zoning. Property to the east and the north is zoned a mix of PUD, planned unit development, and R2 for some other subdivisions that include Birchfield and Bel Air Commons. This is the aerial of the site. It's currently at least partially a farm, existing farmhouse and several ponds, and photo of the existing site. Quite a pretty piece of property. The proposal is to develop a single-family residential neighborhood on this property. It shows 160 lots on the site. The absolute maximum would be 168. That's a density of 2.26 units per acre. The plan includes over 40% green space and includes multiple park areas, both the buffers around the project as well as these internal parks here. And the lots you see there in blue are the alley-loaded home sites. These, as their name suggests, would be accessed from the alleys running in the middle. So what you would see from the park would be just the front of the house. The garage or carport or anything like that would be accessed from the alley. And then the homes would face out over the park spaces. Those alley-loaded lots would have a minimum of 40 feet of frontage on the park and would have a minimum lot size of 5,500 square feet. Around the outside, you see 2 different colors of single-family lots. The PR1 lots, located around the perimeter of the loop road, would have a minimum size of 7,000 square feet and a minimum width of 50 feet, while those around the northern side would have a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet and a minimum width of 55 feet. Side setbacks for this project are proposed to be 7.5 feet throughout. Our PRD ordinance does require 10-foot side setbacks unless the character of the development justifies a reduction in that side setback. And we've talked before about how that can possibly be achieved, some of the traditional neighborhood development characteristics, open space, things like that. In this case, the development is using a significant portion, over 40% of the lots are alley loaded. That's one of the things we've talked about quite a lot as one of the ways to justify that setback reduction. As well as provision of multiple centralized park areas, and those houses looking over the park, as well as significant green space left in the neighborhood, all contribute to that character. The applicant has also submitted a character book for the development, defining what this property is going to look like. That includes, get to that in a second. We also have the pedestrian plan. There will be sidewalks on both sides of the street, as well as trails throughout the park areas. And of course, one of the major concerns when putting a new neighborhood in where we already have residential development is its impact on the neighbors. The developer has submitted a fairly detailed buffer plan for the northern property line. This is adjacent to Lake Royal and Royal Springs Drive. So the buffer here will be 50 feet wide, will consist of plantings, a berm, and a fence to try and provide a good visual separation there for the neighbors. Okay, here's the character book that I mentioned a minute ago. So the developer has taken the time and the trouble to emphasize different types of lots and different treatments that they need, so specifying alley-loaded lots, corner home sites, some landscape impact areas that will be HOA maintained, help define the character of the neighborhood, and some areas that need a little special design consideration. And you can see down there in the center that a couple examples of those houses overlooking the park, that kind of concept. We've also submitted proposed house styles for this development as part of the character book, along with basic layout information. Porch depths and setbacks and things like that as well are included in that character book. This area is located in the neighborhood's character area on the future land use map. That the intent of this area is to provide for single-family neighborhoods. The target density is between 1 and 4 units per acre, which at 2.2, this development does fall within that target density. We do recognize that one of the major concerns here are the intersections with Old Bel Air Lane and South Old Bel Air Road. There are 2 of them. It does come out at both locations. So one of the conditions proposed does require the developer, again, to cost share to provide some money towards fixing those, as well as to provide the design work to improve those intersections. What that looks like is still to be worked out. That will be part of the preliminary plat and the construction plan review process. But that will be part of the construction plans, and part of the development will be improving those 2 intersections. So staff is recommending approval with conditions. One requiring that there be a approval from an architectural control committee or architectural review board with any of the building permits to ensure that character we're seeing with the character book and with the narrative is maintained. We also have several conditions from traffic, again recognizing that there is going to be impact to those intersections with South Old Bel Air and Old Bel Air Lane. Requiring participation in a cost sharing, as well as providing design and surveys of the intersection improvements, and requiring that design to be submitted prior to submittal of the first phase of the proposed subdivision, which basically means they couldn't get construction plan approval to start development without having those intersection improvements worked out, at least to the point of knowing what needs to be done there. And the third traffic condition there is pretty standard. Traffic calming measures are required for any street with straight sections longer than 500 feet. And that concludes the staff recommendation.
Ms. Bolte, if you could refresh my memory, what are some of the permitted uses in M1?
M1 being light industrial allows warehousing. It would allow self-storage. It would allow vehicle sales. I think vehicle repair, we could go in there, including commercial vehicle repair, things like tractor trailer repair, warehouse type uses, contractors' offices, all of those could go in there.
On the first traffic condition, so is that meant to say that before it comes back to us for any other approval of the plan, we would be able to see what the cost sharing is, what the plan is to traffic areas?
Right, so before you saw it for preliminary plat approval, that would have to have been worked out, what the cost sharing agreement is and what the design and the design of the intersection improvements is.
Questions, staff?
What is the difference in size between the street and the alley? So you have the alley loaded.
I do, but I may have to look it up.
You know, that could be
Yeah,
So
I can-
that Mr. Lawrence could answer.
the roads are standard public roads, so they'll be typical road width, 50 foot right away. The alleys, I want to say, are 22, 24, somewhere in there. Maybe
when
ask
he comes
Keith.
up, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is a public hearing. Mr. Lawrence, if you come on up and give us your name and address. Once again, we know you, but folks out in the audience may not.
My name's Keith Lawrence, 211 Dixon Court, Evans, Georgia, 30809. I've got some brief things I'm going to cover, then I'll catch you on
Yeah,
that, if
no
that's
problem.
okay, if that's all right. I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of history on this, especially some of the people in the audience. Miss Jackson has owned this property since September 15th, 1951. Her family has owned this before I-20 even existed. Matter of fact, when I-20 came in there, it split her track in half. The other side on the Wrightsboro Road side and this track right here. She's actually seen the development of Lake Royal, Birchfield, Bel Air Commons, Magnolia Glen, Brookwood Glen, Greenleaf. We were fortunate enough to be involved in the development of Bel Air Commons, Brookwood Glen, and Magnolia Glen, those on that side. I'll say her family didn't purchase this as an investment. It was a family farm, and while it wasn't purchased as an investment, this is her family's inheritance after basically 60+ years of dedication to Columbia County. She's the last holdout. She really tried to maintain that farm as long as possible. To be honest with you, it was quite a touching story when we went through the whole thing. Her family used to actually raise wheat on that property and haul it to Wren's and have it ground into flour. It's a really cool thing, and we came up with the name of Jackson Heights, and the use of the wheat shafts and the logo. It was really a touching thing because they've always really wanted to have something that property could be remembered by, and that's we're fortunate in the fact of how much we're going to preserve of the original property. That the pond's going to stay there, and a lot of the buffer in the natural areas. We'll try to keep a lot of the pecans and stuff like that we can that are on the eastern side of the property. So, it's her dream, like I said, to see really a quality development on this, on that side. And, we talked about this. Probably the next thing to talk about is existing zoning, like y'all mentioned. 2/3 of the property is zoned M1. And as such, asphalt plants, concrete plants, there's a number of uses that could go in there that we don't think are the right use. If Ms. Jackson doesn't work out something on the residential side, obviously the M1 zoning doesn't require any additional changes to conditions to be able to develop. We don't think it's the right thing in there. We've worked really hard with staff to come up with what we think is probably a model of what a PRD could really be. Matter of fact, I think the county has had, this will be the third PRD in 3 years to even be proposed. It's a very difficult proposition, lengthy on the time side. So, the other thing I would mention is that the property's been actively marketed for 2 years. Nobody from the county has talked to her about, coming in for a park or trying to set it aside as green space. It's been available for purchase. We've looked at the track. Actually, I looked at the track 8 years ago, and Ms. Jackson wouldn't return my phone calls. So, it's been something that's been around for a long period of time. When we started looking at this, the first thing we did was evaluate the land based on the 2035 vision plan. Which we always, and when we come to you guys, we want to make sure it makes sense based on what the constituents, the Planning Commission, the Board of Commissioners wanted. They had basically, as Danielle pointed out, 1 to 4 units per acre. We looked at the 2.3, right in that range on that side. The other key goal is the 2035 Vision Resource Conservation Goal number 2 was to set aside 20% of green space. you know, we've got over 40% that this development will reserve in open space, and as well as having parks that are in there that truly are meaningful. Because I know that as I've sat across from you guys and sat through many planning commissions, it's not just the amount of green space, but the usability of the green space that's in there. This has 6 parks. Basically, you know, I mean, we have 120 of the lots actually front a park on there. So it's a very unique presentation of a piece of property. And, you know, when I talked with staff about this, I said, you know, we can't do this every time. This property worked out this way. It doesn't always work out like this. But that was one of the key things when we looked at this, was just making sure that we met with the 2035 vision. The next one was we actually, within a week of putting in a contract, we had Steve Castle out there on the site looking at that Old Bel Air Road and Old Bel Air Lane. No improvements were done by any of the other developments prior, besides I think a slight widening of Old Bel Air Lane when Birchfield was done. So we wanted to even make sure that it could even happen. That was one of the things we talked about. And we proposed $1,500 a lot, which is basically comes up to $240,000. It's $180,000 just to do a left turn lane. So we were topping that with an additional $60,000. But it's just not necessarily a left turn lane. It doesn't solve the problem. And that's what, when we talked with Steve Castle, he wanted to evaluate the whole picture and see exactly what happens. We're not going to close the to answer your question on this one, we're not closing the property until we have a memorandum of understanding clearly in place on what the contribution on our side will be. We proposed $240,000. Our hopes is that the county will then contribute towards some additional money to solve some existing problems that exist even on the other side, on the north side of Old Bel Air Lane. I can't speak for that because I'm not, obviously not Columbia County on that side, but I think they recognize that there needs to be some improvements, and I think it's important to say this when it comes to traffic, because I hear about this in a lot of the meetings, is that these neighborhoods themselves that are being proposed aren't the ones that create the traffic problem. The Columbia County's growth in general has created the traffic problem. It's not one specific neighborhood. As I pointed out, Ms. Jackson's owned this property since 1951. One of the things that, all of her neighbors have sold and their properties have been developed except hers. Lake Royal was part of a larger tract that was then developed into a neighborhood. Birchfield, Bel Air Commons, Brookwood Glen, Magnolia Glen were all part of larger tracts of land. She's the only one holdout, and what we've tried to come up with is a plan that everybody can see is a great use of plan that allows her to reach her inheritance on her side that she's basically invested with so much time in Columbia County. We'll talk about, you'd mentioned this about the buffer. That was the other key thing we looked at before we even did the plan, was looking at Lake Royal is large acreage lots. We felt like the only way to truly respect that size was to go ahead and lay out a plan up front that was going to put a buffer on there. So when we did this 50-foot buffer, we had the trees located, we determined where their needs were, and basically this will be worked out with Jonathan out there, which is your landscape architect, to make sure that, if we need to add some additional ones, we'll definitely add some additional trees. And then the fence on our side, that's always a bone of contention. We basically gave the buffer benefit to the Lake Royal neighbors, and we put the fence at the back of ours, so they really benefit from the 50-foot. It's almost as if you're giving up 50 feet of property towards their development. I think it's also important to notice that as around this whole track, not one neighborhood ever buffered off Miss Jackson's track when she was developed. There's nobody ever provided any buffering on her track, but yet she's, we are definitely, when we came up with this as responsible development, we're going to buffer off the other less intensive uses from what we're proposing, but none of those were ever buffered off on her side on there. So in going through this, we also have a 100-foot buffer along I-20. We think it's important to maintain as much of a buffer on that side, as well as we're going to use berming of topsoil on there. And then after going through that, we set up one of many meetings with the Columbia County Planning and Zoning. We presented a number of different things. The concept was very similar, but they always have good input. We tweaked it. They pushed the envelope on what to ask from us on maintaining character. We wanted to do a character book from day one. I think they kind of made us push the envelope. I think this besides Rhodes Farm, which is one we did, this will be the first probably character book, anything like this in probably the last 7-8 years at least, that I'm aware of on that side. And then defining character as you go through this whole thing. The keys on here that we say we define character: 6 central parks, 70 alley homes, which is 43.8% of the lots, 121 lots fronting a park. use of a character book that further defines the character of the homes, and obviously utilizing the large pond as a community amenity. We've got sidewalks, street trees. Homes can't come in, the garages can't come any further than the front porch. We think that's important so that the garage, it doesn't dominate the elevation on that side. And I close by just saying, we're not here to ask for PRD zoning, but we're rather asked the opportunity to build a community that basically meets the planning commissioners, the board of commissioners, and the staff's idea of what a PRD, a planned residential development, truly should be. So happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Lawrence, just one comment here.
Sure.
You reminded me of something that I actually heard today. As you know, most of you all don't know me at all, but I'm in the advertising business. And I was in discussion with a media person today about the growth of the county. And we've had something unique go on here. Some of you may have been a Nielsen subscriber where you've had to fill out a rating book or that kind of thing so that you can help determine who watches what and that kind of thing. There are 5 counties in this designated market area. They're Richmond, Columbia, Aiken, McDuffie, and Edgefield counties. In the latest rating book, we were determined to be the fastest growing designated market area in the country out of 300 rated markets. We jumped from 112 to 105. And I've been in the business, the advertising business, since 1984, and I've never seen an area jump. You see a 1 or 2, 3% growth, but I've never seen a jump like that. So I appreciate what you're doing here and talking about the growth and trying to help mitigate some of the problems we're having.
Well, we want to see it responsible growth. That you can do the homes, but we also believe in every one of our communities, I think, that we proposed in the last 5 years, we've had 40% or greater open space on there. And we think it's important to not just cram it in there and go through the things. And we've also looked at we went through this, the way we do our road networks are actually provide less linear footage of roads for the county to maintain with a higher taxable revenue. They go through the numbers on that stuff. It's a better for the county on being able to afford, because I think the concern has always been the Columbia is maintaining $250,000 or a value in a home or greater to be able to support it. This way, it actually works very well on that side.
Lawrence?
Yeah.
Approximately what's the square footage of your houses?
They range. Just like most of our other communities, they'll probably, we want to reach some empty nesters on these alleyways. So there'll probably be homes 16 to 1,700 square feet, all the way up to 4,000 square feet. Now, the way the construction costs have gone, that just to give you a ballpark idea, a 1,600 square foot house in today's market is about $230,000 house. So I don't consider that a first-time home buyer, to be honest with you. My first house I bought was in Waterville, was $152,000. That's more of a first-time home buyer type house.
How long ago was that?
What's that?
How long ago was that?
Might be 19 years now. Getting old. Yeah. So
There's some appreciation.
there is some, yes. And I think that growth, obviously, controlled and well-executed growth continues to appreciate home values. If you don't have that, it's hard for the values to increase. What drives real home values is the cost of new construction, because they set the bar on it, continues to pull up resale houses as the costs come up. Now, your question was, what was it again? I apologize.
I was
Oh, the alleys,
about
yes.
within the development, how large the alleys are.
The alleys are 18 feet because there's no utilities. There's no parking on the alleys. Basically, if there's parking, it has to be off the alley on there, and they're private. They're owned by the homeowners association. They're maintained by the homeowners association on that side. Now, one key thing on these parking is the way we've got this. This neighborhood, I can write on this, can I? You have all of this area that basically does not have a driveway on it. So you have a ton of on-street parking. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're going to be doing on here is do some structured parking, where actually the parking spaces is actually set back. So when you're driving down there, you're not just looking at a wall of cars. It's going to tuck in with some parallel parking spots. It's an opportunity for some landscaping in there. So this plan actually has a ton of available parking for residents and guests and everything on that side.
Thank you. Being young with 3 kids almost now, we drive up to birthday parties and, there's nowhere to park on these streets. And not that would affect this. I was just wondering, that's a really good idea.
Man, we really want, like I said, we spent a lot of time trying to give you guys something that we felt like we listened to staff, we listened to you guys, we listened to the Columbia County residents that they want something different. They don't just want the same old thing cranked out over and over and over again. So we feel like this is the best thing. We've tried to give everything we can. This project is probably borderline as far as what we typically would look at on the just like a regular business on there. We've tried to give and give and give on this as much as possible, as well as being good neighbors on it.
Let me ask you this. You say you want to keep some of the natural trees, the pecan. So does that mean that you're not mass grading the whole site?
We will mass grade where the lots are. We will not mass grade outside that. So, and the reason is there's two sides to that. As we've talked with the staff and we've talked with engineering and stormwater. The problem is that also if you don't grade the lots prior to the construction of the houses, if you let the builders grade the lots, you have all that extra construction that drives across the roads that we feel like is basically causing the roads to fail prematurely. So by doing this, we can get extra construction off the roads before it's paved, it's done, and then basically it allows us to control the drainage, because my concern has always been where you have a guy that grades his lot here, and then this one's not graded, and then this one's not graded, and then he grades this one. Well, you have to come back in and fit those between two lots that are graded, and they may not have been graded if sometimes they need to go up or down. Well, obviously, if there's a house, you can't do that. By doing this, you get a better executed plan for the constituents of Columbia County.
So basically, in the green areas where you have those trees, that is not graded land. It's just where the home sites and streets.
I mean, our plan is basically you're talking about this.
Yeah. Okay.
All this area basically comes back up through here, and then we're going to and then there'll also be a little bit on this side back in here. Now, that doesn't mean that if it depends on where the elevation is. Obviously, if there's trees in these park areas and they can be kept, they absolutely will be kept.
Okay.
So it just depends on the final grading plan. We won't know until we kind of get that in there.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Mr. Lawrence, what, I can't write on this. They don't allow us to. What are these, you see the brown, okay? And then you've got
like a tan, the light tan?
Yeah, the tan, brown, whatever. And then you've got a little bit of a slice of green, then a slice of green. How come you didn't use those for houses?
That's actually for access to the buffer, and basically to get in and out of there. We wanted to make sure that we were able to get in and out of those areas. This one, you can come in this way if you had to get in here with maintenance, not equipment per se, but people. So this allows us to get back into these areas through there.
So it lets the deer through.
It does. I mean, like I said, this whole purpose, that's one of the things we talked about is, we like the green space to be connected. I mean, if you look at it, the whole green space from the pond all the way up feeds up into the neighborhood on that side.
So they won't have trails, it's just going to be green.
We haven't finalized the trails. We are going to do some work around. There's going to either be trails, a dock, or something around the pond. We got to look at it and see. The pond's got an issue with the spillway. It's got a crack. Some of it's down probably about 2.5, 3 feet.
How deep is it?
I don't know, but it doesn't.
12 feet.
Yeah, probably somewhere in there. It's not a crazy deep pond, but it needs that extra. That we'll fix that and get that volume back in there. Once we do that, we can kind of see what we can situate around there.
Going to stock it?
Oh yeah, it's actually they supposedly tell me there's a ton of bass in there, but I have not had the opportunity to fish it. Yeah, but I will.
Not going to do any biological sampling?
No biological sampling, no sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Lawrence? Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you all.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone like to speak either for or against this particular development? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward, give us your name and home address.
I'm Vivian Stopper. I live at 747 Royal Springs Lane in Grovetown. This began as a complaint about Jackson Heights. In researching Vision 2035 of Columbia County and finding all the issues with which this subdivision did not comply, we felt that the committee would benefit from hearing our thoughts. As outlined in 2035, there are many other problems, but these two reasons should be sufficient to halt the development of the proposed Jackson Heights. The development should not be built as designed because there is no buffer zone between this development and our rural residences. In addition, the outlined green space is mostly manicured areas.
Good. Would you indicate in here which you're referring to as rural residences?
On the other side of Royal Springs Lane,
Okay.
where we all live. Okay? So, the green space is mostly manicured areas and retention ponds, instead of the undisturbed natural space that should be there. Some of the other problems that we see are the development of 160 new homes will produce terrible traffic problems on Old Bel Air Lane, now barely a two-lane road. The road is widened and sidewalks put in. There is still only one egress point to and from the development. Stormwater is going to be a major problem. Retention ponds will have to be maintained. Construction may block Royal Springs Lane, creating problems for existing residents, as this is our only egress. New septic system for the development could easily contaminate existing wells.
One question, this is sewer, not septic, correct? Septic in the county has to be on R1 with 40,000 feet or more?
Right.
That
It's going to be
correct?
R1, R4, RA. They're going to be at least 1 acre lots
Okay.
for that.
So this entire development's county water, county sewer. Okay.
There are already a problem. This development will drastically reduce the areas in which they live. They will be pushed onto I-20, causing wrecks and injury to many people. South Old Bel Air Road would have to be widened and a dedicated left turn lane installed. We've already discussed that. Sidewalks would also needed to be added to fulfill Vision 2035. A barrier on I-20 would be necessary if the development is approved. 50-foot buffer along Royal Springs Lane is confusing. It does not go the full length of the lane, and the fence and berm placements are rather nebulous. In order to utilize this land fully, we feel that the county should buy it and create a park to which as many as 1,500 people could bicycle and enjoy. If the park can't happen and the development must occur, we suggest that the lots be 5 acres each. This would be in agreement with Vision 2035 of Columbia County Conservation Subdivision Design. Thank you for allowing us to share our thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from commissioners? Is there anyone else that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Yes, sir. Please come forward and give us your name and home address.
Raphael Jordan, and I live in 746 Royal Springs Lane. I've been here in Columbia County for 16 years. I'm a physician, I'm an OBGYN. My main job here is delivering babies. I probably have delivered 5,000 babies just in Columbia County alone, okay, during the last 16 years. My original plans was to live in River Chase until I faced the traffic, even though I bought a lot and I couldn't make it. We have at least 25 to 30 minute time to deliver a baby. From the time they called me, I had to get dressed in the middle of the night, run out, get to the hospital, come back. That's why I used to do 4 hospitals and I only go doctor's hospital. I can't keep up with that. I know Columbia County is growing, no issues with that, you know. But part of it is what this is gonna do to my property. I'm the one beside it. I'm the one who's gonna get everything that he said or not done or whatever is affected is gonna be to me personally, okay? I need to be there in 30 minutes. Right now, Google tells me I'm there in the middle of the night, 13 minutes. 5 to go, 5 sometimes I have to run out of the parking lot to get there in the middle of the night. There's no other doctors there sitting waiting for babies. It's me going on and down. I don't know what's gonna happen with the middle of the road construction because I'm the one responsible. You know, if they start doing this development, I need to make sure there's gonna be some kind of way to go in there and out there all the time. I can't be stopped. No way here until the truck comes. There's no time for that. Or when I get sued, it's gonna be me, it's not gonna be them. Then what? I mean, just as an example of this. So for me, this is very serious. That's why I moved here. I wanna be close to the city or be in the city without the hazards of being there. I don't know if all this traffic is gonna come and affect us and how it's gonna affect us. So for me, those 2 exits are more than important. not like one that is being recommended to go in a curve and go this way. If something's going on there, I need to get the access to the other one. Okay? Second, truly, I love Columbia County. If not, I could have moved to Richmond County like most people are doing, or go far away to the other side. But those type of doctors that live in areas of Westlake and all that, they not to do the type of work that we do. For me, I want to ask you a question because I need to understand. I mean, how important is Vision 2035 here, truly? To see how much I have to talk about this, or I just stop here. I mean, is it something important for Columbia County? Is it something really taken care of, or is it just something that has been said? I know it's been put on a lot of weight, but I don't know how much truly it is. Because I don't know what to ask. Can somebody tell me? I just don't know.
Mr. Butler, I think that's an appropriate question.
Sure. So Vision 2035 is used with all of our reviews as part of our recommendation. There's a whole paragraph on it. It's very important to us to follow that.
Okay, so that's your main. So I'm not going to
Not
say
the main.
because I don't want to mix religion with
Yeah.
this, but it will be one of the things that you really want to try to do your best. Correct?
Yes.
Keep up with it and maintain it. Okay, that's what I want to make sure. Then it's yes. Then it's worth to be talking about that. Then some of the things that really concern me is I agree with him. He can't do any more because there's a pond there in the middle. 100%, he's going to be over the 40%, but the vision says 50. It doesn't say 40. And how about that? It's wetlands. So, sure, you cannot bake it there. I have no problem with that. But for me, that's out of the question. Since they built Birchfield, I have more deers in my property than dogs in my house. For me, this is serious. You got to take 74 acres. And I'm going to tell you this. My dog right now, and this is true. This is not, sounds like a joke, but it's not. Is right now on the intense training. It's a husky, and it's have eaten 2 deer so far, and escaped to the property of Mr. Jackson. I had to call him because he got another one, and he got stuck by one of the antlers, and right now it's in training, and it's costing me a lot of money. Imagine when there's so many there that probably my property is going to be deer land. Okay, so that for me is very important, and this is going to affect us. I think it would have been a smaller subdivision, will have worked. I think a park, like Ms. Vivian is saying, it will be wonderful. But truly, it's more than that. I don't know how much Columbia County needs, but by 2035, the money's there. It's in the spots, okay? And it's something that's been done, since 17 to 20, something is going to be looking for money for that. I think it's something that could be think about because the total quantity of space area meeting your requirements for 2035 is going to be less than 6% of what you want. So this could be a good opportunity to get it, and it will be a lot. And I've been seeing during the years, they've been doing very nice sidewalks all over there, but it have no end. That could be the end. Much better than any subdivision with 100 something houses that will be about 1,000 feet there, about as crowded or more than Birchfield, for the quantity of space. Because if you look at it, you take the green space out, that's very crowded. 18-foot alleys is less than what I have in the breezeway of my house between my two garages. I'm sorry, but you can go measure at home, okay? Especially now knowing that.
Doctor, let me ask you. How would you like
Okay.
But wait. 2/3 of it, zone M1, have trucks pulling in.
But which way? Because right now on the left and on the right, there could not be access to it. And it had to be another planning zone like this, because the entrance of it, can you put the planning for M1 and all that?
Yeah, right
How are
there.
you going to access it? You don't have a way.
Right there.
There you go. But what plan is in the other side? That's not an M1.
Yeah.
You have to go through the I-20 to get there.
It's already zoned that.
Perfect. But how you get what is it, the yellow one? What is that? Because I'm in the same zone like that, residential one, right? There you go. So you can't pass through it unless you come back to this meeting and we talk about what we're going to do.
Actually, you can pass through it.
Yeah.
You can totally put a road right through there.
You can
It's not like it's a no-go.
Let me ask you a question then. Why when somebody can help me, if I can ask, who was the Jackson's who was trying to sell his property, the last realtor? Huh? No. Capes. Mr. Capes went to the commission and asked,
John
which,
Capes.
John Capes. And he did it informally, and that's why he stopped it. When he was with it, there were people who came to ask for doing a development there. And it would have gone with 2035, doing 5-acre lots, not 3 or 4 or 2.5 or 3 per acre. That would have been going with 2035. I would have even helped them. I may have even considered going in and going through my road because I'm the owner of that road and help them to develop because he will be having, 20 houses in a very nice way. Come on, we're neighbors. Like he said, we have to share and do our part too. I have no problem. And if we need to be part of keeping it and all that because it's done the right way, I'll be the first one. I'll be the
I'm gonna
first.
need to ask you to wrap it up so we can let somebody else have the
Okay,
microphone.
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
So the point I'm trying to bring here is, if I can go and I can tell you how many revisions the 2035 had been not followed up. And if we're right that this is very important too, we can do more than that. We can start with the water park, but if we cannot do a park, let's do it with the conservation subdivision, which it will be part of it. And I don't mind being part of that. I don't mind helping that, and I'm not trying to be a pest for them, but I think it will be something that we will work.
Thank you, sir.
work to be. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. Please give us your name and home address.
I'm Frank Albert. I live at 811 Lake Royal Drive. I don't really have much problem with people developing property. I've done it myself. What I'm interested in, or most concerned about, is the traffic on Old Bel Air Lane. It's so narrow you can't really you do have to pull off the side a little bit when 2 cars are coming. You can't walk your dog on there, or even walk a pedestrian walk on there. It's so narrow. And of course, the traffic is just going to be terrible. I kind of got amused when he was talking about the Jacksons being great heroes for holding this property since 1950. I know a lot of people that have big tracts of property since 1950. And what I'd like to say is Birchfield, I think, was owned by the state, and there was a buffer area for the Jacksons. But my problem is, like I say, I don't have any problem with larger lots, development, but this is just too much for this particular road in South Old Bel Road also. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I'd like to say that
Could you give
what
us your
was
name and home
done-
address, please?
Oh, my name is Nancy Albert. I live in the house with him. But from a broader viewpoint, what was done to the Grovetown exit is impacting us all the way back to Bel Air Road. It is bumper to bumper at 5 o'clock all the way back to Bel Air Road. And if you try to take Columbia Road, where South Old Bel Air hits Columbia, it's bumper to bumper for 3 miles to get to Lewiston. And that's because of your planning. Okay, secondly, we have a school right nearby that has no turn lanes. And I've been stuck there for a half hour. I've had to turn around and go up to Bel Air and down Oakley Perkle to get to my house because you don't have any left turn lane and you don't have any right turn lane.
And I would ask that you call your school board member because we've tried to work with the school board here out of this committee and the commissioners, and we get absolutely no cooperation.
Well, you have eminent domain, okay?
No, the school board, we don't.
I would think you did.
Don't
But
believe it.
anyway, then you built a sidewalk on one direction from the school, but why not the other where you're trying to install all this high density? Why don't you have a sidewalk from that school going over to Birchfield and then continuing on up to where you want to build? Third, talk about putting pine trees as your buffer. Those are weeds. They do not block the view. So I'd like to see them use green giant thuya or some other types of trees, not pine trees, because they are weeds, okay? They don't cost a thing. And
Ms. Albert, if I can ask you to please wrap it up so we could let one of your neighbors speak.
I'm having a hard time
Would
here.
you please wrap it up so we can let one of your neighbors come up to the microphone, please?
Fourth, there's no, I want to see how much, why, there's an uphill entrance to Old Bel Air Lane and a downhill entrance. There's no reason for the county to have to improve both. You can just cut off Old Bel Air Lane and let all these high-density people come out one way and then leave the rest of Old Bel Air like it is. Don't widen it. It's shady. And let everybody from everybody else go out the other way. So I'm proposing that you put a blockade
All right.
right in the middle of that road.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate
Okay?
it. Yes, ma'am. Would you please come forward? Give us your name and home address, and after you, we're going to close the public hearing.
Good evening, Marlena Bergeron, 2545 Willow Creek Court. I want to thank you all for everything that you're doing. I want to thank everyone here who is here tonight because they care, because they have pride in their community. I was here 2 nights ago when the commissioners approved a 500 home development off of William Few Parkway. Now, those trees are already gone, but it's still an amazing time to be here, and I appreciate that you've inherited an infrastructural mess. You have growth beyond anybody's belief, and at the same time, you have people like me who have been here since 2013 who have fallen in love with the wooded land. And I like what this woman over here said, that green space that's unaltered, that supports wildlife and habitats, is not the same as manicured grass and a few planted trees. I want to say that I trust you all. I have an attitude of gratitude for our staff at the county, for our appointed commissioners, and for our elected ones. But I feel like when we have to continue to come here and say the same things that we have said when you asked us, and you paid money for consultants to put this together because you cared about our vision, and then we told you. And then we have to keep showing up to these meetings to say, please don't do this. Please save more trees. Please honor the things that we care about. Please support the people that are already here. I think it's just a hard time to be here. I know what exists and then see it go away. And I, as a member of the public, want you to know that people are starting to feel sick and sad. They feel gut punched when they see these areas just totally clear cut. And I appreciate that Mr. Lawrence wants to leave the perimeter. But once you change that inside, it's gone forever. I also want to say that Columbia County is a golden goose, and we are killing it one cut at a time. And we will not be able to take it back once it's gone. We are hurting our environmental security, and we are steamrolling the wildlife, displacing it, liquidating it, and steamrolling the residents who are already here, who are kind enough to be reasonable. You know, people aren't against development, it's how. And I feel like it's 2018. We are aware of issues facing the whole planet. And if we aren't smarter with what we have, we are going to lose it all. And widening roads cannot be the solution to every problem with traffic. I have been gunning for tree conservation and this bike path since I moved here. I also know that even if the septic tanks can handle it, even if the first responders can handle it, even if the schools that are already using portable classrooms can handle it, I know the land, how can the land adjust as quickly as we're changing it? I know us as the people are having a hard time adjusting as quickly as changing it. I'll let someone else take a turn. But you do not spend this much time on good faith on something and don't follow it. Thank you.
Excuse me, wait. You moved here from Maryland, right?
No, from Mississippi.
I thought you moved here from, okay.
I've been around, but I was in Mississippi before moving here.
My brother lives up in Maryland, and they live in an established neighborhood, and they've got so many deer there that they have to have shoots or hunts of them because they're a nuisance.
Sure.
So
do they eat the meat? after they shoot it?
No.
Okay.
But and SRS, the major cause of accidents are deer vehicles. They have 100 a year. So, me, that's just something I want to say. And that's why I asked, not even facetiously, are you going to let more deer in? It seems like we've got a lot of deer around.
Right.
So, and this gentleman, the doctor said his dog. So I'm just saying that there are good sides.
Sure.
And bad sides.
I appreciate that, but I like the wildlife here. I hope we don't have to put them at risk or us at risk. I think we all kind of have to change at the same time, everything that we're doing, and we're not changing fast enough.
All right, any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And with just one, make it quick, please.
I know we're gonna grow. Can at least do it the right way. Think about 5-acre lots and the conservation subdivision. There's no buffer, not buffer like buffer that. There's no buffer between residential and rural except the Jacksons, between Birchville and us and total Lake Royal. That's the only
All
thing.
right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, we're going to go to you, and then we're going to close the public hearing. Please give us your name and home address.
Gonna close. My name's Ricky Ross. I live at 4865 Old Bel Air Lane. Mr. Lawrence, excellent presentation. That was a really good job. You covered a lot of things that are very important to some people. Some people are not going to agree with it. We're not going to make everybody happy. One thing, there was a buffer. You said that there was not a buffer. There was a buffer built by Birchfield, which is on the north side where the county has access to a water tower right there. A lot of access right there. Have any of y'all gentlemen been to this area? Y'all familiar with it? Okay.
I think we've all
Been out there many times over the years.
All right, that's important. Been 9 accidents on Old Bel Air Lane by itself, one including valedictorian graduate of Evans after he graduated high school. Those issues with the roadway were never addressed at that time. Birchfield was built. There was promises made from the builder and commitments from the county to fix the roadway entrance from South Old Bel Air onto Old Bel Air Lane. Still hasn't been done. That part hasn't been completed.
Ross, excuse me. Mr. Lawrence, in your conversations with Mr. Castle, have those improvements been addressed on Old Bel Air Lane? Okay.
That's what we were told when
Okay.
Birchfield was built.
Okay.
All that was promised.
I wasn't around then, but I know now with Mr. Castle here, he's taken the bull
I've
by the
spoken
horns
with
in a
Mr.
lot of
Castle
areas.
many times, and he's been to my house, and I walked him through, and the best I could get was patch certain areas of the road. And many people have addressed the narrowness of the road, and that contributes to 9 accidents on Old Bel Air Lane. I mean, it's when they built Birchfield, tractor trailers won't come in through, I guess it's the west entrance coming from South Bel Air, the lower end, because the trucks bottom out when they come over that hill. So they would come from Columbia Roadway, where that fatality was, and cause a lot of problems right there. And they destroyed Old Bel Air Lane. I mean, it was broken up everywhere, crushed all the drainage pipes underneath the road. Castle's been out there to look at that, and they have no solution. Pretty much washed their hands of it. Yet there's 2 residents right there where that drainage pipe is. Garage, I got pictures of it. Mr. Testy's garage fill up 1.5 foot of water on heavy rains, just on a normal day, not on a bad weather day, because they ignore that crushed water pipe right there. The excess water runs into my property. I'll invite you you can come eat dinner with me, whatever, and watch the river that runs through my yard because of that crushed roadway. Just gets ignored. And then you add this. We're not probably, everybody in here knows this subdivision's probably going in. But please do it right. Do it right. Fix the roadways and the access and the egress, coming back and forth into that area. It's horrible. Real tiny road. When they added Birchfield, it just, an enormous amount of traffic. That left turning lane like he's proposing, I think that's a good portion, but that other end, Mr. Lawrence said earlier when I spoke with him, that there was really no, the other end of Old Bel Air Lane was not being addressed, right? Hoping that it would be. He said there had to be a commitment from who, the county? I mean, does all that need to be in place before the subdivision gets started?
It has to be before they close on the property.
Before they close on it?
So
Would
this
be an
could
agreement to
fall
fix it?
apart if the county doesn't step up.
Both ends of the road. Knows what he wants, but does he know what's best?
Yeah, he does.
I mean, he's a very nice man. I mean, we've had some good conversations. But I think we would all like a commitment, all to make sure that it's done right. Egress and ingress of that area. I mean, it's already overwhelming.
We'll make whatever suggestion we can, but this is just a recommending body. The commissioners are the ones that can compel. Because all we do is we're kind of a shock absorber for the commissioners.
Right.
We have an open hearing. If any of you have ever been to a commission meeting, how many of you have been to a commission meeting? Okay. So you know they don't have as much discussion as you've seen here tonight.
That's right.
So our job is to listen to the public, to weigh what we can, to make a recommendation to them. Sometimes they follow it, sometimes they don't. I've seen
Somebody's
quite
got to control that part, though.
well, you know, that's up to them. That's you every couple of years, you're asked to vote for a person that you believe is going to represent you, so you don't have to spend every day trying to follow what's going on. You trust them to make good decisions for the county. So they trust us to come in, get as much discussion as we can. Every one of these board members has conversations. Personally, I talk to every commissioner at least once a week. Several of them I talk to many times a week, asking them what the plans are, what the history is, what their vision for an area is, what they like, what they don't like, what they'll consider, what's absolutely not negotiable. So you take all that, meld it together. We try to make the best recommendation we can based on what the existing residents have to say, based on what the developers have to say, based on what the property owners are wanting to do with their property that they've held on to for a significant amount of time. So we take all that together. We're all volunteers. We make a recommendation to them, and then it's up to them through discussion. And again, after we make a recommendation, I'm Ron Cross's appointee. I have to be the lizard boy in the circus and grow my butt back sometimes because I get chewed on. But you know what? He appointed me to make a decision the best I can. And in the 11 years I've been here, he's never asked me once to make a decision one way or the other. He's always trusted me to make the best decision based on the information I have at hand. But he has overturned me any number of times.
That comes part of it.
And I can honestly tell you, one or two times I've said, if you don't have confidence in me, appoint somebody else.
I respect that. I appreciate your volunteering, for the betterment of everybody around here. And I deal with that myself,
About traffic, I know time's going, but when Mr. Butler took me out there, time I saw that, and he put me right at the end there, I laughed. I said, there's no way you can build a development here. What Lawrence said that he's going to do sounded reasonable. But I mean, the way it is now, you couldn't do
Yeah, there's no way to do it right now. I mean, that would have to be done first. And also, after this goes in, but do the repairs, the heavy trucks and everything is going to, they're going to tear it up. Going to make the new access road and fix it like Mr. Lawrence is saying. Tractor trailers that come in and out of there building houses is going to tear the road up that you just fix that. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
that.
Appreciate it. With that, we're going to close the public hearing, and I need a motion to approve.
Before you do that,
Okay.
could you go to the photograph of site? Yeah. They were, no, go back, well, either one. They use this to farm wheat, right? No. Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about, there isn't a lot of buffer there to begin with. Yeah. So it's not like it's wooded.
I wanted just to follow up with that. I was actually going to have them pull up, the same slide. Living in a rural area myself and being very conscious of large developments coming in, that's something that I can understand and see. But I do see, too, being environmentally conscious, looking at this, the clearing isn't going to be as mass as what I would expect, just because of the natural way the land is already laid out. And one other thing just that occurs to me is as M1, as already zoned M1, anything tomorrow could go in that would be a lot more detrimental than a residential neighborhood, in my view. So I think that the plan looks a lot more responsible than what we've seen in other rural areas in regards to both grading and use of the property.
With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve file RZ 181003. I think that's the best use over one.
All right, do I hear a second?
A second.
Okay, any discussion? Over and above what we've already discussed?
Is there, excuse my ignorance on this, but is there any condition for?
There is conditions. I amend my motion to state the conditions.
But should there be anything added that when it comes back, we look at both parts of the road that people are concerned about?
He won't go to closing.
Won't close without both sides?
Unless he
Okay.
and
Not satisfactory.
the county arrive at some conclusion agreeable to both. And you do not go to closing. I have not misstated that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Second still hold, sir? We got a motion on the floor. Let us finish, then we'll have public comment in a minute. Okay, second holds. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? To approve carries 4-0. Final public hearing of the evening. Mr. Butler, file RZ 181004. If you'd like to hang around, you can. If you'd like to leave, we'll take a break for just a second and let you all exit.
I meant to, for clarification of 2035, because I didn't think I saw anything there that.
Let's do that separate.
So,
Heartburn?
oh, I said that.
Yeah. There isn't, you got to split the baby. I mean, you can't split.
If I could ask you all to please hold your discussion until you get outside.
Beautiful plan.
Mr. Butler, if you'd like to go ahead and make the last presentation of the evening.
Sure. This is a request for a major plan revision at 5080 Washington Road. Currently zoned PUD, plan unit development. Existing use is undeveloped. Revision is for commercial, retail, and self-storage uses. Ours on the south side of Washington Road, just east of its intersection with William F. Parkway. And currently shows the zoning of the property. Again, property to the south is zoned PUD. Property to the west is zoned RA. Property across the street is zoned PUD as part of Riverwood, which you can also see over here. And then also you have property to the east is zoned S1 for the, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a assisted living facility. And it shows aerial view of the site, again, currently undeveloped. Also a street view of the site, and also the plat. This is the current plat for the property, but you'll see in a moment it's a little different than what this plat shows. This is the compiled plat for the property itself. Again, right at 5.5 acres, give or take a little bit. So the request is for, actually, let me back up. So this property was rezoned in 2001 and then also revised in 2002 as a planned unit development. This parcel currently can be developed as C1 uses, which are pretty varied under Columbia County Code. This request maintains the C1 uses, but does add a storage facility to the property. That's normally a C3M1 type use. You can see on the concept plan, this does show everything is more oriented towards the road with this design. The applicant is using Riverwood as a good example of how to develop property. We'll see in a moment, this is going to tie in with Riverwood itself, our currently existing Riverwood, future Riverwood development, as well as in some ways tie into the C2 property right here on Nob Hill Road. That's not working, unfortunately. So this shows the layout of the property. You have retail commercial there, and then also one there as well, and a storage facility to the south of that. Again, the property, this does show that they would have a 20-foot landscape strip along Washington Road. The building setback would also be 20 feet along Washington Road. Buffers against both Jessica Creek would be 20 feet and also against the S1 on the right-hand side. The use itself, again, the retail and commercial is pretty simple, to be honest with you. We'll see the building in a moment, which is really the kind of the showpiece for the application. The storage facility itself, you can go back to this, would be in this location here. I'm really not liking I'll be able to draw on this. You have the only access will be at the back of this building. And again, speaking about Riverwood as a whole, this next slide will show the overall development of Riverwood. You have the currently existing Publix that's here, and then the concept plan for the remainder of the commercial development in Riverwood. The property is also on the other side of Nob Hill Farm Road that was rezoned to C2. It also has conditions that it has to look like Riverwood. The applicant has done a very good job of doing that in our opinion. The building itself, again, this does not look like a self-storage facility. On the left-hand side of this picture, that would be where the storage would be. Again, currently our fully enclosed, climate-controlled storage. It's a 3-story building, but reads as a 2-story building from the street. Then you see the commercial on the right-hand side. Again, if you've been to Riverwood and seen the Publix that's there, very much looks like, this very much looks like that development. Again, their materials they're using are a mixture of brick, stucco. They do have some metal panels we'll talk about in a moment, and they also, again, more of a commercial feel than a sort of industrial feel for the enclosed storage. This shows the building itself. Again, the front side we've already seen. The back side of the building is on the bottom side of the slide. Again, you do see on the left-hand side, on the bottom, you have the commercial on the left, and again, kind of shows a pretty typical commercial storefront there. The rear of the storage does show windows, which again, this does back up to residential property. And one of the things there is to provide a pleasing view if you do see this. Again, it does have a 20-foot structural buffer around it, but it is probably going to be visible in some respects to Jessica Creek. All the windows that are shown on the back are they don't work, let's put it that way. You can't see into or out of them. They're just there to provide a pleasing elevation. And again, in terms of future land use, this is within the Greenbrier Activity Center. This area is slated for development that is perhaps more of a neighborhood-style commercial use. Again, for instance, the Publix, the commercial that's proposed. Storage can be, in our opinion, a neighborhood use if it's done correctly. This is a very good example of how to do climate-controlled storage. We've seen some recently that we had some discussions about quite a bit. And again, you do see neighborhoods around this as well on the future land use map. The only concern from staff, again, we all recommend approval condition, is the use of IPS metal panels require review and approval by staff and the Planning Commission. Prior to approval on the site, we've discussed metal panels in the past. There are different ways to do these, and we haven't really seen them from the applicants. So we do ask if they're going to use them, they got to bring them back and show it to us. That includes staff recommendation.
Recommend approval?
Yeah, approval condition, I guess.
Any questions, commissioners of staff? Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Let's come up and give us your name and home address.
I'm Mike Palladdy, and I live at 738 Greenfield Abbey Court, Martinez, Georgia. As y'all mentioned, the property was originally zoned in 2002 as a part of a PUD. Actually, when the adjoining neighborhood, Jessica Creek, was developed, it was zoned as part of that PUD. And during the time that we started working on this, one of the things that we did because of, I think, the stigma maybe of self-storage when the word comes up, is we went ahead and went to the neighborhoods, homeowner association for Jessica Creek, which is directly behind this location. We went to the homeowners association for Riverwood Plantation, and we went to the homeowners association for Windmill Plantation. Met with the president of the two associations, and I talked by phone with the president of the Windmill Association. And we also held, on October the 3rd, we invited the Riverwood Association and the Jessica Creek Association to our plaza building over here, and we had an open meeting with anybody in the community to talk about the facility and to see how we were planning to do it so that it would fit in with Riverwood, because that was a major concern from a lot of the owners. Our company, I'm the president of Maybom here in Augusta, North Augusta and Aiken, and our development company worked on the development of Riverwood Plantation. And so the other thing that I did, in addition to going to homeowner association, I went to the principals in Plantation on the adjoining property across the street, the 60 acres, Mr. Pollard and Mr. Maybom, and went with this, and they made adjustments, and this was the final plan. This was the tweak to make it, they were comfortable with it as a part of the overall development plan showed a few minutes ago. At the community meeting, we had a number of concerns that got raised from residents. The folks in Jessica Creek were very concerned about the buffer. At the time we originally proposed it, I think it was 10 foot. We doubled the size of the buffer. They also wanted to know how that rear elevation would look. And one of the things about it, even though, in the height that shows that it's, on this end down here, that it has the three-story on that end, that site is going to have to be cut down on that end. There's going to be not a lot of that you're going to see back of Jessica Creek. In other words, I think the cut is going to be about 20 foot, so that it's going to end up with just the upper portion visible from the rear. And as Will mentioned, the windows, you will not be able to see out from the storage facility or to see into it from those rear windows. They are purely architectural for the look. Some of the other things that got raised from Jessica Creek, they wanted to talk about the lighting on the rear. And of course, we put even the office for the storage on the back side of the building, so that from the front it appears to be a retail center. And on the lighting, we're going to get with Georgia Power and use kind of a diffuse reflector around the back side of these lights and situate them in the parking lot so that the light is forward toward the building as opposed to being back toward Jessica. We had on the site, I think, the other thing we got both from the Riverwood folks and from others in the area, they wanted to see retail and restaurants as a part of this plan. One of the things, we just finished the market out at Riverwood, and that was one of the biggest things we got in that was that, the residents wanted that. And so we proposing to put 3 restaurant spaces on the right side of the storage. In addition, not shown on this plan, there is another pad for a restaurant site, which we do not know who that would be, but it's down at the lower end of the property. But we did that because on the last site, we had, with the request of the residents, we got as many restaurant, grease traps as we could so we could put them in the other side, and we filled every one of them. That was the first thing we got from a shopping center. So we want to do the same thing here. We want to put all of those with grease traps so that hopefully we can get, restaurant space there. Traffic was a question, and obviously, from the standpoint of the storage facility, that is a very low impact on traffic. I mean, there's very few people coming in and out of there every day as opposed to some of the other commercial uses that could be put on the property. And I think the last thing was, right now, the site currently has 2 DO2-approved full-service drives on the property, and our plan is to only use one of those. And then ultimately, the other plan we have for the other side of the road, the plan one day is to tie in, obviously, Nob Hill Farm Road. We've already set the connections back on the other side of the road for the sewer so that that road could serve as a connector road into the freeway stop on William Few at Riverwood, which would allow at some point when you get the right use for the other side of the road, a light at Nob Hill Farm, which is really important for the whole area. So, when we saw it, we saw it come up originally as storage. We looked at it. We said, this opportunity, we can do it well, make it fit within the community. We can use the same architectural style that we used at Riverwood. And so that's our proposal. I mean, we think, we feel like having done Riverwood that do this. And, I've with the homeowner association boards, a lot of good things came out of those meetings in advance of this. That some of the suggestions they made were incorporated into the plan as a part of this. On the restaurants, they wanted to see. On the front, they'd like to see some outdoor seating areas with the restaurants, and we're going to incorporate that into our architectural, our final plan. So that's it. I mean, any questions?
Mr. Pallady, I do have a question.
Sure.
Could we go back to the overhead of the site? I believe you, Mr. Lawrence, Commissioner Henderson, and I discussed positioning of the dumpsters.
Right.
Be as far away from the residential units as we can.
Far away from the
where that'll be.
And we've got one located down there near that pad at the bottom, but we will make sure that we put them both down there. That's away from any of the rest.
Okay. Any other questions?
Under the allowable uses, it says the standalone retail commercial building shall be in accordance with C1 zoning with the exception that the drive-through restaurant is allowed. So you're thinking of having a restaurant with
Well, I tell you, the challenge with that in Riverwood, I mean, I think all of us would like to see that, as a developer, we'd love to see an Olive Garden, something like that. The problem we have right now, we do not have the daytime traffic counts yet. Justify some of the things like even in the restaurants, that we've put in there in the market, Rooted Coffee, the Flying Biscuit Cafe, their counts are really good at night, but at lunchtime they struggle a bit with that, and that's really right now that's the problem, and we don't know what that would be. Our goal would be to, we'd like to do something nice. We've been holding out in Riverwood and Addison Square at the entrance. We have a restaurant site there, and we've been holding it for years, and we continue to hold it, and we continue to hold that land across the street because that plan we have for it has very specific uses, professional, it has retail, it has professional retail. We have a site we could put a YMCA on. I mean, there's a lot of things, but that's going to require a long-term hold on the property. There's just have to build enough traffic count.
A lot of the traffic is going in and staying in, coming out there.
Right. And so, the Publix is doing very well. Their numbers continue to increase. I mean, the whole center does well, but the restaurants is just going to be a little bit of a slow go, as far as getting a sit-down restaurant or a freestanding building. But, I mean, we don't have an immediate plan. It'll sit there as a pad until we figure out a use. Because
what are the, could you show me the elevation? What are those towers for? Just looks?
They're looks.
I mean,
the whole facility, that one, I mean, it's a very expensive building to build.
Yeah, that's
like
what I was
this.
wondering.
That has elevators on the inside. The people that are contacting us since we did this are asking about storing rare books and climate control, wine cellar. I mean, it's a whole different user, I think, than what we
not like things you see on Garage Wars or whatever, Storage Wars.
I don't think so. No.
All right.
Can you tell me a little bit about that. Oops. IPS metal siding, is that metal siding that has stucco on it or has the
Yeah,
stucco
it's-
look?
And that's something that came up, and I think we're gonna have to provide examples of that to get that approved. It actually, we've looked at it, it almost looks like a hardy board panel. It's very hard to tell the difference. When you look at it, it's very durable, lasts a long time. And we're using, just for point of reference, there's a company that came to our meeting that addressed some of the residents' concerns. It's called SDI, and they actually build the facility for the self-storage, and they do them all over the country in very dense areas, very difficult areas to develop in. We looked at some they did in Jupiter, Florida, as an example, and we're dependent a little bit. We know what kind of brick we want to use. We know we'd like to use white mortar on the brick. We know stucco or hardy what we would use. But they have raised that, and they said this is a really great material, and you need to take a look at it. So we put it in the zoning, but it's subject to approval by the county.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right.
We may ask you to come back up. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Give us your name and home address.
My name is Robert Boyd. I live at 2005 Turner Drive in Jessica Creek neighborhood. I'm the president of the Property Owners Association for Jessica Creek. And as Mr. Palladie said, he brought this to our attention a couple of weeks ago. In that time period since then, I've had the opportunity to speak to a majority of the neighbors in my neighborhood, and most of our neighbors are opposed to this plan because if you bring up the slide that shows the neighborhood, Jessica Creek here, you see there's approximately 15 to 18 homes that are directly impacted by this project. This storage facility and restaurant area will be in their backyard. We're concerned about, usually garbage companies go to not residential, but commercial properties about 4 o'clock in the morning. We think that'll be a disturbance to those people, especially that live in this area of our neighborhood. The lighting, we're not sure yet. He mentioned about getting with Georgia Power and directing it in a different direction, but we don't know if that's going to happen yet. So we feel like those neighbors in our neighborhood will be affected by lights that would
Sir,
probably...
if that's a condition of zoning, it has to happen.
Okay.
So,
But we just feel like that, with lights back there, even in different directions, could possibly be a problem there. Over here in this area is the Madison Heights Nursing Home and Memory Care, which is directly impacted by this facility also. We're concerned about those residents from time to time. Some of these people have been able to get out. Some of these people are in memory care and they are lost when they get out. In fact, we have a neighbor back here now that came in contact with one. She called the Richmond County Police Department and helped relocate this person back to where they needed to be. We're also concerned about the service trucks that would come in to bring products to the restaurants, what time of day or night that would be. A lot of times these restaurants are serviced early morning hours, such as that. We also are really concerned about our property values. I respect each one of you and the volunteer work that you do for our county, and I know every one of you are Columbia County residents. I would ask you the question, would you like a storage facility or a restaurant in your backyard? We're real concerned about our property values there. I think if I were to sell my house after that was put in, people may question whether they wanted to live in an area like that. And so
what would you prefer to see? That's Washington Road.
I understand it's very commercial.
Yeah.
There. Well, even something like doctor's offices or lawyer's offices or a bank or something even that's less of a, storage areas are really not a positive impact, especially if they're in your backyard. So we're real concerned about the property values there, just as I think you would be in your neighborhood. So we're real concerned about that. I mean, the picture, if you go back to that slide that shows the front from Washington Road, that's a beautiful building, and I appreciate Mr. Palatti's concern about making this look like across the street with Riverwood, and that Publix facility and that shopping area is beautiful, but it doesn't touch any of the homes in Riverwood. That 50 acres, if you could show that again, that's across from us, that 50-acre tract that's right across from Nob Hill Farm Road, where they propose to do a second phase of putting in some type of shopping area, that also does not touch any of the homes in Riverwood. You know, those homes, if you drive into the Riverwood area, they're quite a ways back from Washington Road, and so any development they make along Washington Road does not impact those people. And so we're real concerned about something that's directly going to be in our backyard. You know, it's a real concern there. And we, as a representative for the Jessica Creek Property Owners Association, and having talked to most of the neighbors, we would like to request that you deny this plan. I know you just strictly recommend to the commissioners, but we would like for you to recommend this not to happen. And maybe we could recommend something else that would be less of an commercial type impact on us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, didn't we limited the time that trucks could come? Walmart, I was trying to think. Limited the time of that.
Walmart Marketplace.
Yeah, I was trying to think, Mark. Could we put a,
You can, according to the county attorney, we can do whatever we want to do.
until he says no, yeah. No, I'm.
When you ask him for an opinion. So anyway, if you'd like to make that a motion and make that a condition, you're more than welcome to do that. This is a public hearing. Do we have anybody else that'd like to speak either for or against? Yes, sir. We'll take both of you all. Yes, sir. Come forward, give us your name and home address. We'll be glad to field it as best we can.
While he's coming up, Mr. Boyd, are you a teacher? Or my 8th grade Georgia history teacher? And I'm a history teacher. Just had to say it because I didn't know if I'd see you before you left.
Please give us your name and home address.
My name is Austin Sechrist. I'm a homeowner at 2004 Turner Drive in Jessica Creek. I just had a question regarding the occupancy rates over at the public shopping center, because my concern would be that, like you spoke about, the amount of daytime traffic that's going through the area currently would not be enough to support this development. I know we all would like to have the idea that there are going to be these restaurants and great night hotspots out here in Columbia County, but I'm concerned that through the development that there aren't currently enough need to support that.
If I remember, there are only 2 vacancies. Right.
And I had a secondary question about the height of the light poles on the backside of the wall of the.
How much of a grade difference is there between this property? Because I remember there was another applicant, and I understood there was a 20 or 25-foot difference in the grade.
Yeah, yeah. But as far as the light poles, I get, because I know that is a concern. I don't necessarily live backing up to this property, but I know that even lights from from the nursing home coming, are shining 24/7 back there, coming directly into my house. So if it's you said it's a 20-foot grade difference down. The grade, okay. Okay. I
Did he
understand.
see the top of the light pole?
The other thing too is that during site plan review, they're gonna have to submit a photometric that shows what's actually going on back there. So they won't be able to get their LDP, their land disturbance permit until that's done. And so we'll check that and make sure it's not spilling back into Jessica Creek. Because again, their narrative states they're not gonna do that. So it's,
I was just concerned about the lights, and I had a question about the number of vacant and filled. Because I know farther up near the Ace Hardware, it feels like there's not as I know it's zoned for different. Yeah, they're set back. All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate you. Yes, sir. If you'd like to come forward, give us your name and home address.
Tim West, I live at 2036 Somerton Circle. I'm your house right there in the corner. Biggest concerns for me is the buffer zone does look the smallest. It is butted up right against our fences. Did you say that you were going to build another fence back behind there, or? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we would have to all be without a fence before you to build another one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Another concern I had, which you addressed already, was the dumpsters, because I'm right there in the corner. It's about 100 yards from my back fence to Washington Road from there. So that's pretty tight, when you're looking at retail, restaurants, things like that. Time of, I think you mentioned that earlier, when these restaurants would close, you definitely wouldn't want something with hey, we stay open to 2 until we get serving drinks,
I don't know if the sheriff's going to allow that.
Yeah, 10 o'clock would be great if they're shutting off by the end of the latest. One major concern I probably had, just coming out of Nob Hill Farm Road, it's improved since Washington Road has been widened, but that's pretty tricky hill when you're navigating, still in the mornings when it's dark, things like that. If there's a lot of traffic, beginning to come in and out of there, that would be an issue without a light there at the end of Nob Hill Farm Road. But
Long-range plan is to have a light there as the property across the street develops. Right, I think they call it a waiver that you have to qualify for. Yes, sir. Just one moment, please. Let us finish this, and we'll let you do that.
And my question with the buffer was, what type of trees would these be? Leland cypress type trees, something that would cover?
Sure. So it's evergreens. They're going to be spaced 20 feet on center, and they have lower pedalum in between them. And they'll work with our landscape architect to basically make it so you can't see through it. Basically, that's the intent.
as far as the grading is on the storage facility, because that is, I'm pretty much eye level with the top of Publix, so that's kind of my range there. How much, I'm thinking a story 8 to 10 feet per story, so that's 24 to 30 feet height. So that would be brought down some. That's still, which was pretty, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Boyd.
Getting into what they proposed for phase two, but right here on Nob Hill Farm Road, they talked about in the future putting a traffic light there. We already in Jessica Creek have a hard time even getting out to Nob Hill Farm Road now. It's so much traffic through there. So we already have a traffic problem now. It's getting out of the neighborhood on the Nob Hill Farm Road.
I wish we could, we probably get more complaints about traffic than the traffic department gets complaints about traffic, and I wish we had some influence over it here. Yes, sir, understand. Okay, let's carry on the discussion afterwards, gentlemen. Yes, ma'am, we're going to bring you back up, and you're going to close the public hearing for us. You're close.
30 seconds.
Marlena Bergeron, 2545 Willow Creek Court. This is actually why I came tonight. So I have questions for you first. I was here when a storage facility was proposed next to the 1114 church. Tell me, did that pass?
Yes, it did.
It did.
Okay, so my question
With
for,
some conditions.
I beg your pardon?
With conditions.
With conditions, because I know they're already marking that land right now, so I figure it's to develop it. Now, that's a wooded lot. This, too, is a wooded lot. Those are two fully wooded, more so than the property that Lawrence is going to develop. Those are two wooded lots we're about to lose once again in a time where are we having environmental compensation? Do the people living in Jessica Creek know that the Washington traffic will sound louder once those trees are gone? That it will be appreciably hotter in that area once those trees are gone? And my question is, can this population really, does it need two storage facilities that close? This is my son Mitchell. I'm flying solo tonight, guys. I'm sorry. My husband's in St. Louis.
None of us have ever been through that before.
So my question is, if we're going to build two storage facilities, number one, do we need it? Number two, is that really what we want to surrender?
If I know that business, I believe what they do is they look at a point on a map and draw a circle around that map and look at rooftops.
Okay.
And so the number that I've heard is 10 to 12,000 rooftops, and you can sustain a self-storage facility. So that's why you see them spread out. Sometimes you see them clustered because of the number of rooftops.
Right.
So.
I mean, I think there's a personal consciousness maybe where, you know, are we going to lose something we need just to have a place to put more stuff that we want? All right, so that's a soapbox. You guys know that about me.
Yeah,
and then
and
the other part.
Excuse me.
Yes.
That's a personal decision.
I understand, but I also know what I see there now, and I know that whole area has plans to go commercial, and I think it's regrettable.
And he was talking about people with rare books and that sort of thing.
Rare books I'm okay with. Can we nestle it inside all the trees and have a little meandering path to the bookstore? That would be fun. And then on a personal note, we've got to do better than Olive Garden because I'm half Italian. I make sauce every Sunday if it's below 80 degrees. And I feel like we've got some sophisticated folks around here. Maybe, no, not knocking Olive Garden, but I think we can do better. Again, storage facilities versus the trees and being respectful for those folks. I mean, if this gets passed, are we talking about 2 years from now or 10 years from now? When would construction start if you guys say yes and punt it to the commissioners? 2 years or 4 years?
No. What's your construction schedule?
6 months. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir, Mr. Lawrence.
Talked about this a couple times, but just for the young lady that just left, as far as environmental compensation, last year we planted 8,500 pine seedlings after the fact in additional to bring the development scars in. So I think it's important to say that we're probably one of the few developers in town that actually do believe in trying to reforest all the slopes with trees after that's on that side.
What's those rat trees talking about?
Actually, a pine tree growing in an open setting is actually a beautiful tree.
Weeds.
If you've never seen if you've seen a pine tree grow out into a field, it actually is extremely great buffer. But it's a side note.
Right. Thank you, sir.
The pollard doesn't feel it.
Yeah.
So.
As for the
And-
question of the storage facility, why it was located there versus across the street, just for informational purposes?
I think because this property right here is currently available.
Oh, okay.
I mean, and if
Gotcha.
to do it in this side, you'd have to build this whole road.
Okay.
And then, like I said, that road can't be built until you've got one of the anchor tenants or something like that to go on that side, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Keith, let me ask something. What is in that, bring up the raw one? Yeah, oop. That thing right at the top, is that a dumping ground or what?
Oh, this was actually, we worked with you guys, actually, off the Washington Road. Technically, it's y'all's fault.
Okay.
No, I mean.
Forget I asked that.
Again. No, we really did. It was just something, when we were working on the project, the
So
county.
it's not concrete? And
No, it's.
Not an inert landfill.
No, it's just dirt from the road construction that you guys needed a spot to get it, so it actually saved the county money on the construction costs.
Thanks, sir. And with that, we're going to close the public hearing, and I'll accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Trying to think of Walmart.
Limited
We-
times of
no-
delivery.
No overnight delivery. We could only, they could only empty the dumpsters after, I believe, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve RZ 1810 major PUD revision with adding a condition on the times where trucks can enter. Got trouble with idling trucks.
Yeah, which they, they're taking fresh fruit and vegetables and that kind of thing, so that's not going to happen here. They probably have morning delivery because most restaurant owners don't want deliveries during lunch or dinner hours. So it'd be mid-morning or mid-afternoon when they did their delivery. Honestly, most of the clients I've had probably would take their deliveries mid-morning, probably. So you could do after 8 o'clock, I think would be sufficient.
Okay.
Because most of the folks aren't going to want to put people on the payroll that early in the day.
So after 8, and dumpsters after 8.
Probably the same. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 3-1.
I know it.
We do have no legal matters under staff and commissioner comments. We do have a minor waiver. This is for presentation only.
This is a minor waiver for 527 Brigadier Landing. The current zoning is R2, single-family residential, and the applicant wanted a 10% reduction in the front setback so they could build a garage addition to the property right there. And staff has approved this administratively and it is just for your information only.
All right, do we have any other staff or commissioner comments? Okay. Any public comments?
I have a comment.
Okay.
What happened that,
Oh, the commission had some concerns about it, and so it got put on hold. It was supposed to be until the first meeting in November. It's probably going to be at least the second meeting in November.
second meeting?
Yeah, BOC meeting.
Oh,
Had some issues with some of the language in it, that sort of thing.
I heard it was too expansive.
Wanted
That
too much
too.
overreach into areas that we could never probably afford to buy.
That too. The action matrix that's in the back of it would eat up an entire splost to even do a portion of it. That was one of the issues brought forward. A lot of it's going to be explaining, how you go about actually implementing the plan, and realize that it's not a do it in 5 years plan.
Right.
So that's
Generation plan.
yes. Portions of that definitely are. Road projects take forever, and it has a lot of road projects in it.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments, staff comments, any public comments?
I move we adjourn.
Hang on. Yes, sir. You come up. Give us your name and home address, please, sir.
Bel Air Lane,
Would you spell your name for us?
Grovetown,
Last name.
D-A-L-E, Sickles, S-I-C-K-L-E-S.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to make 2 points. There apparently is an M1 corridor going down I-20 on both sides that was put in place in 1973. I would recommend that you remove that. It has absolutely no sense in any locations. As we saw tonight, you can have a corridor right up against R1, very large lots. It is insane. I think it was put together in 1973, and all of you are too young to have been done that. So can I recommend that you address that and get rid of it? It's a problem because
We do county-initiated rezonings from time to time, and we can probably put that in for consideration in the future.
Sure, it's come up before. I mean, we have several issues that it's caused. A lot of it's going to take the commission making it happen.
And the property owners cooperating, because it's hard to go in and rezone something when somebody owns it, and they don't want it rezoned.
I think you could do it in a logical way. Look at access points, which ones of them make sense, which ones do not, which ones have a property that has a combined rezoning. It doesn't make sense to have part of this property being R1.
Sure.
And you know that you're downgrading the zoning on it. Part of it M1, you're upgrading it. That mixed zoning on a piece of property shouldn't be there, and the access point really isn't usable
And
either.
some of it you have to take into consideration the property owner, because you may change their tax consequence by rezoning the property as well.
True.
So,
Nothing wrong with just talking to them. I mean,
Oh, I
somebody in
understand.
1973 wrote it in,
understand.
so
I
you can
understand.
certainly use some logic and sense and kind of readdress that, I think.
Right. Yes, sir.
The other question I had, and I didn't get a chance to ask earlier, on a planned residential development, are there not a lot of requirements for details in the development? And I haven't seen that come out this evening, and I didn't get a chance to.
It's probably the most stringent development code that we have. Mr. Butler, would you like to compare and contrast PUD versus
Sure. So if you
RD
have
versus everything else?
Yeah, if you were doing like a straight, like you're an R1 development.
Yeah, I can save you a lot of time, as long as they know it's more stringent. When do those come out? That was my question. In the narrative I saw for the one tonight, there wasn't any description of it. I do not know the product that will be put on that property.
They'll spend the money after they close on the property, after they reach an agreement with the county.
So
That's when they really go into develop, but then they'll come back in here with a preliminary plat where they get with staff and.
Well, you answered the question, part of it's 1,600 square feet.
We got that.
That's around the park.
Things like that. I just bring this up because the rezoning of Birchfield, it included specifications of the exterior materials. And we don't have that within this narrative or at this point. And I just kind of getting clarification from you as to when all of that comes out.
So one thing too, if you start putting in exactly what materials you're going to use, you can write yourself into a corner. That's one of the issues that we've seen in the past, is that we didn't have people coming back having asked to remove like a material from it. So if you go in there and have it where it's, we're not necessarily focused on the materials themselves, we're focusing on what are the lots looking like? How is this designed? What types of houses might they have? Then it makes it so it's an easier development for these guys, and also we're able to get a better product out of it on the county side of it. If we get down into the details like that, it can cause problems in, 10, 20 years down the road. There's projects that, we see that come back, or that someone will try to develop in, that was written back in, like, for instance, Westlake. It has a narrative that's well over, 30 years old. And that old of a narrative, that it gets down to that amount of detail, can cause issues. And that's kind of where we're trying to get a little away from that. So.
I can understand that logic. Mr. Lawrence wants clarification on the road conditions. I'm right with him on that. I would think he'd want to know what those requirements are going to be also before moving forward. I hate to buy a piece of property. You guys dump some very stringent requirements on him. He said, oh, geez, wish I'd never bought it. I'd like to see it done a little bit sooner. So you can consider some modification in processes. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
all you-
Okay. Do we have any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor? Motion to adjourn carries 4-0. 8:25 p.m. Next meeting will be November 1st at 6 p.m. in these chambers. Thank you all for coming out and participating.